Aliyah Boston just dropped 4 words that sent shockwaves through the WNBA, and if you think this is just another postgame quote, you're dead wrong. What she said in that locker room after Indiana crushed Washington 94-65 has become the rallying cry that's terrifying every playoff team right now. And here's the kicker. She said it while the Fever were missing 5 of their best players, including Caitlin Clark. The words, "We choose violence daily." But before we get into why that phrase has the entire league on notice, if you're ready for the most intense playoff run in Fever history, smash that like button and comment Fever Finals below. This wasn't supposed to happen. When the Indiana Fever lost Caitlin Clark to injury after just 13 games, every analyst wrote them off. Then Sophie Cunningham went down with her knee. Chloe Bibby's knee gave out too. Sydney Colson got sidelined. Aari McDonald's foot injury ended her season. 5 core players gone, and the so-called experts were already planning Indiana's funeral. But Aliyah Boston had other plans, and what she's been building in that locker room is something nobody saw coming. The transformation started 3 weeks ago when Boston pulled the remaining players into a closed-door meeting. No coaches, no staff, just the players who were left standing. Sources inside the organization say she stood up and told them straight, "We're not victims, we're predators." That's when the mindset shifted from survival to domination. Boston wasn't just filling Clark's leadership void, she was creating something entirely different, something more dangerous. But that wasn't the whole story. What happened in practice the next day would shock everyone. Boston showed up wearing a shirt that said "Choose Violence" across the front. And by the end of that session, every single player had ordered one. It became their secret weapon, their inside joke, their identity. When reporters asked about the team's new aggressive style, Boston would just smile and say she was playing quiet spice basketball. The media bought it, but opponents started noticing something was different. The numbers tell a terrifying story for anyone facing Indiana in the playoffs. Since Boston took over as the emotional leader, the Fever have outscored opponents by an average of 18 points in the 4th quarter. That's not normal. That's not sustainable basketball, that's pure intimidation. Boston herself has averaged 14 rebounds in those games, but here's the stat that should scare everyone. She's drawn 37 charges in the last 8 games. 37. She's literally throwing her body at opponents and daring them to match her intensity. What makes this even more insane is how Boston has weaponized the team's injuries. Instead of making excuses, she's turned every setback into fuel. When Clark went down, Boston reportedly told the team, "Good, now they won't see us coming." When Cunningham got hurt, Boston's response was, "More minutes for the hungry ones." This isn't positive thinking, this is psychological warfare, and it's working at a level nobody expected. The Washington game wasn't just a win, it was a statement written in blood. The Mystics came in thinking they had a chance against a depleted Indiana roster. They left looking like they'd been through a car wreck. 9 points in the 3rd quarter? That's not basketball, that's a public execution, and Boston orchestrated every second of it. Not with flashy plays, but with pure, unfiltered aggression that had Washington's players literally backing away from her in the paint. Here's where it gets really interesting though. League sources are now revealing that multiple playoff teams have held emergency meetings specifically about how to handle Boston's new approach. The Connecticut Sun's coaching staff reportedly spent 4 hours analyzing film of just Boston's defensive positioning. The Las Vegas Aces have been practicing specific plays designed to avoid her entirely. Think about that for a second. Teams are game planning around a player who wasn't even considered the team's primary star at the start of the season. But what happened next would change everything about how we view this Fever team. During the post-game celebration in Washington, while everyone was focused on the playoff clinch, Boston gathered the team in a circle and made them repeat after her, "We choose violence daily. We choose violence together. We choose violence until they stop us." Video of this moment leaked online and went viral within hours. But what most people don't know is what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. Boston then pulled aside the younger players, Grace Berger, Victoria Vivians, and Katie Lou Samuelson, and told them something that would define their playoff run. She said, "They took our stars, so we become the nightmare they never saw coming." Those words have now been printed on shirts that the entire team wears under their warm-ups. It's become their secret armor, their reminder that they're not just playing basketball anymore, they're waging war. The psychological impact of Boston's leadership goes deeper than motivational speeches, though. She's implemented what she calls violence checkpoints during games, specific moments where the team collectively decides to turn up the intensity to unbearable levels. It happened 6 times against Washington, and each time resulted in a scoring run that left the Mystics gasping for air. Other teams have started noticing these patterns, but knowing they're coming and stopping them are two very different things. What's really fascinating is how Boston has managed to maintain this intensity while staying within the rules. She's not getting technicals, she's not starting fights, she's just playing with a controlled fury that's perfectly legal and absolutely devastating. Referees have actually complimented her on how she's elevated physical play without crossing lines, which makes it even harder for opponents to counter. You can't complain about someone playing hard when they're doing it by the book. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now because what's coming in these playoffs is going to be must-watch content. The Fever aren't just participants anymore, they're predators, and Boston is leading the hunt. The stats back up this transformation in ways that should terrify every playoff team. Since Boston's violence mentality took over, Indiana's defensive rating has jumped from 23rd in the league to 7th. Their rebounding percentage went from dead last to 4th. Their points in the paint increased by 22 per game. These aren't gradual improvements. These are seismic shifts that happened almost overnight. And it all traces back to that moment when Boston decided enough was enough. But here's the part nobody's talking about. Boston's influence has spread beyond just the players. The coaching staff has completely restructured their approach to match her intensity. Stephanie White admitted in a recent interview that she's never seen a player take ownership of a team's identity like this. She said, "Aliyah didn't ask for permission to lead, she just started doing it, and we all followed." That's not normal for a third-year player, but nothing about this situation is normal. The ripple effects are showing up in unexpected places too. Ticket sales for Indiana's remaining games have skyrocketed. Merchandise with Boston's number 7 is outselling everything except Clark's 22. Social media engagement for Fever content has increased by 300%. People aren't just watching for basketball anymore, they're watching to see what this team will do next, how far they'll push, how much violence they'll choose. What makes Boston's approach even more remarkable is how she's managed to keep it positive despite its aggressive nature. This isn't angry basketball, it's purposeful basketball. She's not lashing out, she's hunting. There's a difference, and opponents can feel it. Several players from other teams have anonymously admitted they've never felt more uncomfortable on a court than when facing this version of the Fever. One Eastern Conference guard said, "It's like they're playing a different sport than the rest of us." The timing of this transformation couldn't be more perfect either. With the playoffs approaching, teams usually tighten up, play more conservative, try to avoid injuries. But Indiana's doing the opposite. They're ramping up, getting more physical, daring teams to match their energy. It's a gamble that would backfire for most teams, but when you've already lost 5 key players, what else do you have to lose? Boston figured that out before anyone else, and now she's turned desperation into a weapon. Recent reports suggest that Boston's influence has even reached former Fever players. Diana Taurasi reportedly called her after the Washington game and said, "You're playing the game I always wanted to play." Coming from one of the most competitive players in WNBA history, that's not just a compliment, it's a coronation. Boston has tapped into something primal about basketball that most players are too afraid to embrace. The psychological warfare extends to pregame routines too. Boston now leads a ritual where each player has to name one thing they're willing to sacrifice for the win. Not metaphorically, but literally. What pain are they willing to endure? What comfort are they willing to abandon? It sounds extreme, but the results speak for themselves. This team isn't just winning, they're dominating in ways that shouldn't be possible with their current roster. Looking ahead to the playoffs, the question isn't whether Indiana can compete. They've already proven they can. The question is whether any team can match the intensity Boston has created. The smart money says no. When you're missing 5 players and still crushing teams by 30 points, you're operating on a different level of determination. Boston has turned adversity into rocket fuel, and the explosion is going to be spectacular. What's even more intriguing is how Boston plans to maintain this through a playoff series. Regular season games are one thing, but 7-game series are about adjustments, and every team thinks they can figure out Indiana's new identity. Boston's response to that concern was classic. Let them try to adjust to violence. We'll just choose more of it. That's not bravado, that's a promise. And based on what we've seen, it's one she intends to keep. The league office is reportedly monitoring the situation, not because anything illegal is happening, but because they're fascinated by the cultural shift happening in Indiana. This is unprecedented in modern basketball, a team losing its stars and becoming more dangerous. Marketing departments are scrambling to figure out how to package this story, but Boston's making it easy for them. She's the villain nobody saw coming, except she's also the hero of her own story. As we head into what promises to be the most intense playoff run in Fever history, one thing is crystal clear. Aliyah Boston has transformed from a talented young player into a force of nature. She didn't just fill the leadership void left by injuries, she created something entirely new, something the WNBA has never seen before. And those 4 words, "We choose violence daily," aren't just a motto anymore. They're a warning to every team standing between Indiana and a championship. The Fever aren't just back in the playoffs, they're coming for everything. And Boston's leading the charge with a smile on her face and violence in her heart.